Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, returning guest to the show, one of the writers for our network and a friend of the podcast, of course, Vasili, I'm going to say it right this time, Gianarakos. Did I say it right?
You got it.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. All right. Vasili, what's up, buddy? Welcome back.
Not too much. I mean, from the first time we talked, things were looking a little bit better for the Flyers. I think it's safe to say that they've gone, a lot down in terms of their performance. So,
well, you know what? I think that is important to maybe emphasize before this, because we were just talking off the record there, and obviously we're both frustrated. But I think it is important to remember that it's not all bad. It feels that way now, but it isn't all bad. Like, we're not the worst team in the league, even though it feels like we are. We're not. But
yeah, that'd be the Senators. So.
Yeah, well, we're heading in the wrong direction, and a lot of people thought the Senators were going to be a halfway decent team this year. Well, let me give a shout out to our sponsor, because I always seem to forget in the beginning. And also, I do want to start doing this because I keep forgetting. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. I always say it at the end. I don't know how many people. I don't look at the analytics as much as I should. So saying it now, please like, subscribe, share. Definitely helps the podcast. And a shout out to our sponsor, Jim's Steaks on South. Get your cheesesteaks, get your chicken cheesesteaks, get your buffalo chicken cheesesteaks, get whatever you need. It's wintertime. It's around the holidays. Go get cheesesteaks. The Flyers are miserable. Get some comfort food. It's time. So yeah, shout out to Jim's Steaks. Eat some cheesesteaks. All right, let's get into it, Vasili. Flyers just coming off. I don't want to say it's not an embarrassing loss. They didn't play the worst game they played. Actually, there were some bright spots from the game, but the Flyers still, with a complete inability to bury the puck in the net, they lose 4-1. Again, another game where they're not able to score goals at all, even though they had opportunities. And they lose their 7th game in a row. Not all in regulation, but at this point, it's like they can't generate offensive opportunities and bury them. I will say there were some bright spots in that game. The second period, the Flyers clearly outplayed them. Hart played well. Shesterkin definitely stole some goals away, and so did Hart the other way. But the Flyers really never, in the beginning of that game, they gave up 2 goals early. They go down 3-0 in the game. And, it's, again, one of those situations where they're just not on the ball. They're just not on the ball. What do you, what do you take away, at least from that, from the recent loss? And, we can get into the collection of losses as well.
Well, I mean, obviously things aren't going well. They're on a 7-game losing streak. So just to point that out, I mean, it can only go up from here if we're trying to find any positives. I mean, they could lose more, but that's the main thing I want to say. Like, it's possible they win their next game. Who knows? They're playing a good team. But it's crazy to think that they're on a 7-game losing streak, and that was probably the best game that they've played in weeks in terms of the process. Like, they started off not the greatest. Obviously, you don't want to go down 2-0 on the road.
They lost the game in the first period. Not to cut it off, but they did.
No, 100%. And what I was just going to say is, I mean, they've averaged 1.69 goals per game in their last 16 games, which is abysmal. So if you're a player on that bench, you need to have a strong start. And they effectively allowed 3 goals in the first 21 minutes, and that kind of, spirals the whole game for them and kind of puts them behind the 8 ball even more. Because if you're a player on that bench, knowing, okay, we score about 1 or 2 goals a game, maybe if we're lucky.
Yep.
We're already down 3-0, like with half the game left. I'm sure that doesn't inspire confidence for them. I mean, they tried to push back in the third. You have a nice goal by Morgan Frost, shows some hustle in the offensive zone, gets to poke that puck in. And then it's just, once again, the power play is letting them down. I mean, 5-minute major, can't capitalize on that whatsoever. They get a lot of shots, which I guess is a good thing, because, I mean, they're showing improvement, the fact that they can actually get scoring opportunities, whereas previous power plays, they're not getting any opportunities whatsoever. It's just, I mean, if you're given that many power play opportunities and you can't capitalize, how do you expect to win games, right? So imagine they score at least 1 goal on that 5-minute power play. It's a different game entirely, but it's just their lack of ability to finish on the power play is once again killing them. So
yeah,
that'd be my takeaway.
No, I think that's very well said, and it's kind of a reflection of where this team is right now. I mean, you had 5 minutes of unwavering power play. You could score as many goals as you want. And I do agree. It looked better on the power play. Having said that, you had 5 minutes and you did nothing with it. It's almost inexcusable. When the opposing team takes a penalty, gets their player thrown out of the game, you have all the momentum on your side in that moment, and you still can't bury it. I do want to add also that, Kevin Hayes is back in the game. Obviously not at 100%. He's still working his way back in, but it was good to see. But then unfortunately, Joel Farabee takes a spill on his own, and I don't know. I don't believe there's been an update yet. I think tomorrow will be the update on Farabee. Hopefully it's not a separated shoulder, and hopefully it's not long-term injury, but it didn't look great. Hopefully it's more of a day-to-day or a week-to-week type of status, and we don't have to, see him out for a significant amount of time. But, one step forward for the Flyers, 2 steps back. I just feel like that's the entire season. It just cannot stay healthy. And I don't really think that's the excuse for losses at this point. But, you talk about that 5-minute major. That used to be a strength for the Flyers back in the day. Is an opportunity for 5 minutes on the power play. That's an opportunity to change the game. And they didn't. They weren't able to do it. And it's a reflection of where this offense is. What did you say was 1.62?
1.69 goals per game in the last 16 games. So that's basically like all but the first 4 games of the season. Which is abysmal.
That is historically horrendous.
Yeah.
And I want to make this clear because I'm hearing a lot of picking apart of the players and the level of talent of this team. I'm not blaming anybody for saying, flip the table and fuck this team or what. I don't blame anybody. I don't blame you for being angry. I don't blame you for thinking this is unacceptable. So I'm just giving people my take, and Vasili, obviously you'll give them your take. But my opinion is that this is clearly a coaching issue. Doesn't mean AV, and I've said this on the last podcast, doesn't mean AV is an idiot. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. That's not what I'm saying. No. But when you lose the room, it becomes obvious. And this isn't when he lost the room. He lost the room last year. And I think we're watching the remnants of that this year. Those losses against the Rangers last year, most Flyers coaches would not have survived those games. He got an excuse, that they played so horrendous in that time period. And they're like, okay, COVID, losing Niskin and blah, blah, blah. Now, you don't have those excuses anymore. And I'm sorry, losing Ryan Ellis and Kevin Hayes is not excusable for what's going on here. There is enough talent to score 2.5 goals a game. Okay. 100%. We're asking for middle of the road here. Okay. Not top of the league.
It's not like other teams, aren't dealing with injuries as well. Just look at the Pittsburgh Penguins.
New Jersey didn't even have Hughes.
Yeah. New Jersey didn't have Hughes. The Penguins didn't have Crosby or Malkin. They're still floating around. I mean, the Avalanche haven't had Nathan McKinnon, and they went on a 7-game win streak without him or something.
They scored 6 goals. They're like scoring 5-6 goals a game right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, just losing 2 players shouldn't be enough of an excuse to say, okay, now it's time for us to go on a slide because we lost 2 players, right? It has to be a next up mentality. And I 100% agree. I mean, these players have talent. There's no doubts about that. I mean, they're obviously not capitalizing how they should be, not creating scoring chances how they should be. But if you look at the way they're playing games and the way they're attacking the neutral zone in terms of carrying pucks in versus dumping them in, I think that's the major key as to why.
Totally agree.
Yeah, that's the major key as to why they really aren't, creating chances or even spending much time in the other team's offensive zone and having the puck more, because at least the way the NHL is now, it's a puck possession game. If you don't have the puck, you're likely defending. The more you defend, chances are you're going to probably be losing or be chasing the game, which Absolutely. Is if you watch the last 7 games, the Flyers, what have they been doing most of the time? Defending in their own zone. When they do get the puck, they get up to the blue line, dump it right in, and then they don't have the speed to retrieve the pucks,
or they're alone.
Or they're alone when they do retrieve it, and there's nobody for anybody to pass to. So, like you said, I do believe it's strictly a coaching issue at this point. I mean, there's obviously some players that are underperforming as well to kind of go with that too. But it's really just puzzling to me because you have a team that you can clearly see lacks speed. So they take the puck, they give the puck away effectively every time they try to enter the offensive zone and race the other team to the puck and then try to win it back. But why not just carry it in and then cycle down low if you want to do a cycle? At least you'll have the puck possession. and potentially be able to do something with that. Every time you dump it in, you're just giving the team the puck and basically resetting and saying, okay, you could take it and come back to our zone and we'll defend again and we'll try it all over again from the top. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm sure some people get frustrated. I said this, but I said this last year too, that I didn't think the problems last year were a talent issue, right? And you're seeing, yes, they're different problems,
same
but again,
system.
Exactly. And I said it last year, and then and I said this at the time when Voracek was traded, when the rumors were around that Voracek was being traded, and that ghost was being traded for 3 years, who's now almost a point per game player, and Voracek's still having a good season. It's like, this is what I was saying. I was like, you guys keep blaming the one guy that you see doesn't fit that puzzle, and that guy changes every season. And now all of a sudden, Lindblom is a fourth line player. Excuse me? That is one of our best defensive forwards, and he's being ignored by the coaching staff. Like this is stuff that I'm like looking at where I'm like, okay, the tools you had weren't good enough for you before. Shit on Dave Haxtell. He never complained about the players he had. And quite frankly, he had a worse team than what we have today.
Way worse.
And that's what people like. I'm seeing a lot of hate on Coots and a lot of hate on Provorov. Like I'm hearing Provorov is obviously not a top pairing defender. I think that's absolute nonsense. I think he clearly is, and I think this team is struggling immensely. Is he a true number one superstar defender? No, but you don't usually identify those at 24. They're not really a thing at 24. Like even Victor Hedman, I brought this up over and over again, struggled until 24 years old. Chris Pronger traded at 24 years old. Erik Karlsson struggled 24 years old. Like it does not happen at that age. Sorry, it's not going to happen. If he hits that elite status, it's going to be around 26, 27, 28. That's the reality with 90% of defensemen. That's when they hit their peak, not 22, 23. You have no idea.
You have a few outliers like a Cale Makar who comes in and rips the league up.
Yes.
But how often is that really happening? Like you said.
But that's only offensively too.
Yeah,
he's not the best.
He's not the best. Exactly, he's not the best defensively, and that's arguably what you're looking for in a number one defenseman. Someone who's solid enough in their own zone, but can also drive play as well. And I mean, the Provorov stuff's kind of nonsense to me. Sure, he hasn't had the best games in this losing streak, but the whole team hasn't been good. But also,
exactly,
it's stability. Like when you're playing a position like that, so he's playing obviously over 24 minutes a night because he's a horse out there. He eats minutes. So that's the first thing. You're playing tons of minutes. That opens up, the ability for there to be mistakes when you're on the ice. That's the first thing.
And your team's not playing well, like you said.
Yeah, and the team's not playing well. And then the second thing is there's no stability in terms of his partners. He goes from Ellis at the beginning of the year, then he goes to Braun, then they change Braun, put Ristolainen, then they put Braun back, then they put Nick Seeler, who's a seventh defenseman, on the top pair with him and expect him to, turn water into wine or something playing with him. But it's just the stability. I think he's a young player. He needs somebody that's going to be playing with him on a consistent basis. Obviously, that's why they went out to acquire Ellis to have that partner. Unfortunately, he's injured at the moment. But I just think that, flip-flopping between Seeler, Braun, Ristolainen, pick one of those three, even if it is Seeler, and just stick them there, let them develop some chemistry. And that's the same thing with the lineup, I would say, in general. And it's something I noticed as well that was interesting. Yesterday, during the game, you see the Morgan Frost, Giroux, Atkinson line. They're developing chemistry. They're making some plays on the ice. You see Frost score a goal. And then in the third period, he has almost the least amount of ice time and is demoted and not playing with Giroux, who were arguably the two players that were showing the most offensive spark the whole game. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of my view. But yeah.
No, I think you nailed a bunch of that stuff. I understand. Like, I do want to give. Like, I feel like it's really easy to jump on a coach when things are going wrong because he's looking for options. Okay.
Of course.
So and I think we all get that. Like, I get why you're changing up your lines, but the combinations he is putting together, I'm not enthralled by them. I don't understand a lot of the decisions, and they're not producing in anything. And then I wonder, like, do you know your lineup as well as you should? Like, why? Like, again, I'm not in that locker room, right? We're not at the practice.
No,
we don't see the effort and stuff that people are putting in. Those details matter. But I've been around this team a long time, and you've obviously been watching it a long time as well. And like, I know what's gone right and what's gone wrong in the past. So I'm looking just for patterns as an outsider here. And I see patterns that have worked in the past, and then I see patterns that are being used today, and I know that they're not going to work. And, we mentioned the power play earlier. Like, I have never seen the Flyers with a worse power play system than what I've seen today.
Oh, I agree.
And I understand, like, we weren't perfect back in the day. We didn't even have the personnel the same degree we have today. Obviously when we had Simmons and Voracek, and that was like that unit, everybody really knew their role there. But like that bumper slot is essentially irrelevant. It's non-existent. They don't use it. The point shots, everything is completely from the outside. There are very limited options. The players themselves don't behave like they believe in the system itself. And that's where I kind of come down to. And this is why I believe it's a coaching problem. Like, I don't see the players buying into what is being asked of them anymore. And I don't blame them because it hasn't manifested into anything.
No. And just to go with the power play, like just to jump off what you were saying.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the thing that makes the least sense in terms of the power play, and sure, okay, you're in a slump. You guys are whatever they are, like 3 for 60 in the last like 7 games or the last like
I think it's 4 for 50 something.
Yeah. Anyways, it's really bad. Like it's definitely ridiculous. The worst in the league
all-time low.
In the last handful of games. So Claude Giroux, notoriously a great power play player. In the last, I believe, 10 seasons, he has the most power play points in the NHL.
Yes.
Most of that was done on the left-hand side of the ice,
yes.
where the half boards are. You can take one-timers from there. He's easier to receive passes. He's not taking them on his backhand.
Yes. He has the bumper slot open for one-timer.
Exactly. Where's Michel Therrien placing him yesterday on a 5-minute major? Where is he placing him?
On the right side.
Where is he placing him in the third period where, they could potentially get back in the game with 1 goal on the power play on the right side?
And where did he score the game-tying goal against Tampa Bay?
On the left-hand side.
On the left-hand side.
Exactly.
Where did he have that pass to Couturier behind the net?
On the left-hand side.
That pass left-hand side. Just want to make
it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like putting literally, I don't know, something square in a circular hole and trying to make it fit. And I just think, just putting Giroux in that role on the left side instantly makes the power play better. So you're on a 7-game losing streak. I think that's the simplest change you could make, but they are just adamant on not making adjustments. And I think that's the biggest flaw with this coaching staff. And I guess maybe you could say that's the flaw of such a veteran coaching staff, is that these things for this staff has worked in the past elsewhere in other places.
I would argue for Michel Therrien, it's never worked, but
probably. But anyway, but at least for AV, like he had success in New York. He's had success in Vancouver. So I see and I understand why he would think to himself, you know what, this stuff's worked in the past for me. So we just need to keep, hammering it onto the players, and eventually they're going to get it. But at this point, you could just tell that they aren't grasping whatever he's trying to get across. And one stat I just wanted to lay out that really like epitomizes the fact that the team has not been good for a while under his tutelage is since the bubble. So that was 1920, since the playoff bubble. I believe they're 43, 37, and 2. And in 99 games, that means they've won only 43 of 99 games. So that kind of shows overall that, like, under his system, they haven't been clicking for a while now.
Yep.
And, like, obviously Fletcher said he needs to see more to evaluate, what this team is. But how much more do you need to see when, a team with a coaching staff behind it has only won 43 or 99 games? That typically means they're not a very good team. And in this regard, they've even changed about 45 to 50% of the roster at this point in terms of this offseason. So how could you point to the players and say, oh, it's a personnel issue or anything along those lines when half the team's changed and you changed it yourself? And, what remains? The coaches. So,
yeah. And I don't understand the loyalty to the coaches to an extent. Like I do on one end. Like the reality is, and people might not like this answer, these are human beings. He has relationships built with these guys. This is how you get jobs. This is how you keep your job. You build a good relationship with the people around you, right? So, like, odds are him and AV probably like each other. AV likes Michel Therrien. Like, he's not excited to go fire him or anything like that. And it is Fletcher's job to be stable and to be calm under pressure. And I get all that. I do. And I honestly commend him for that. I don't think he had a good press conference, but I think if I talked to him personally one-on-one, which I would never have the opportunity, like behind the closed doors. But if I had that, I think we'd get very different answers than what we got publicly. I think he's not stupid. The moves that he made were stuff that a lot of us wanted to see. He's not dumb. He knows what's going on. The problem is he worries, am I overreacting to a small sample size? And this is where I think you're completely right. This isn't a small sample size. Yes, there were excuses last year to make, but the reality is he lost his team last year. Those games against the Rangers, that whole spree, they were completely ineffective as a team, and they ended the season bad and bad and bad. And it's not, obviously the beginning of the season started off better, but they've never had a good possession game. It just feels like he's not an idiot. He's not a terrible coach or something like that, but his system, I believe he's getting out coached on a nightly basis, like almost every single night. Unless the Flyers talent shows up, he's just getting out coached. Like there's not much that he's doing as far as pressing the right buttons and making the right adjustments or putting a system in a place that produces anything. And again, it doesn't mean that the Flyers are a Stanley Cup caliber team, but they're better than what they're playing. And 100%. I want a coach that can get more out of the guys. Like every single player outside of Claude Giroux is underperforming. And now even Couturier included in that. That is a system issue. That is a system issue. Like people think Provorov is a number 2 or a second pairing defenseman. I think that's absolutely crazy. And I think if you saw Provorov on another team, he's either their number 1 defenseman or their number 2 defenseman, and he's playing top pairing. He's not going to be entered on their second pairing D. Sanheim is a second pairing defenseman. Risto is a second pairing defenseman. Like those are second pairings, and nobody thought that this was going to happen again. Nobody looked at the Flyers lineup around the league and be like, this team is not going to be able to score goals. They're going to tank.
No, everybody thought they were going to be a playoff team.
Well, the questions were Carter Hart, right? Which I didn't question, right? So if everything is collapsing around you and Carter Hart's the thing saving you, it's like you don't have a choice but to get rid of the coach. You don't have a choice, Fletcher. You don't have a choice. You cannot be married to your coaches. Otherwise, you will find your way out of here too. It happened to Hextall. You can't do it.
Exactly. That's what happened, with Hextall and Hackstall. He didn't want to get rid of Hackstall, and he was gone eventually. And I don't know if it's going to get to that point. Like, I definitely feel like Fletcher will let go of AV and his staff before he falls on the sword himself. That's for sure. Yeah. It's just a matter of, by the time he does do this, because I think we're trending towards that at this point, by the time he does let them go, is it going to be too late to salvage things, right? Yes. And I mean, if you look at it now, it really still, like, they're not playing well. They've lost 7 in a row, but they're still 4 points out of the wild card. And I mean, it's not like Columbus, the Blue Jackets, who are holding the last spot there, are the best team. And both their goalies right now are out with a flu, and they're playing a third string goalie. So they're probably going to, lose tonight, I would imagine, as well. So, I mean, the Flyers, they have a chance to still get back into things. It's just
salvageable.
If you try to, hammer that, this is AV's team, it's him or nothing, then I just feel like the team's going to unravel even more. So,
yeah,
I mean, you have to be able to notice, the surroundings that the state of the team is in, and the fact that he obviously isn't getting through the players and what he's doing isn't working. So you can't just, keep doing the same things over and over again with the same personnel. That's the definition of insanity, basically. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I think last year was the year that, like, okay, we gave you the, he had a really good first year. I think he did, with a worse lineup, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't have as good lineup as they do today. That's why I kind of have a problem with what people are saying. People are like, oh, these guys. Yeah, but they have been. And people are like, is Couturier a top center? He's obviously not. You got to bring in a better center. But he has been. So why isn't he now? Right? Like either you can say he's injured, or and I've said this before, I made this joke before, it's not Space Jam. A bunch of aliens didn't come in and take their talent out of their body. You need to bring somebody in who can maximize the value of the players you do have. On paper, you're not worse than Buffalo, and you're playing worse than Buffalo. I would actually say on paper, healthy, this team matches up against most teams in the NHL. The problem is execution. And yeah, the blame belongs to the players too, but it's not like everything they're doing is terrible, but it's just not producing into anything. And I don't feel like he has the answers anymore. I really don't. I didn't feel like he really did coming into this season. I was very uneasy with him to begin with.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest. I would have liked to see him let go after last season because in the
NH, he would have been.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, this ownership group with Comcast and Dave Scott, they're not really very hands-on. So Chuck Fletcher's the president.
They don't know that much about hockey.
Yeah, they don't know that much about hockey. They give that role to Fletcher. So if Fletcher thinks that AV, is still going to be able to right the ship, they go with that decision in terms of that, which I mean is something that I would like both of us said we didn't really want to see. I personally would have gone a different route. I'm not too sure who that would have been. Obviously, you have to look at the candidates for that. But it's just, when you're a coach and you lose the room, especially in the National Hockey League, it's more the players just not having confidence in the system, right?
Yes.
If every player isn't buying in to what you're trying to preach and how they should be playing, they're not going to, effectively execute, as you were saying, which is what's happening right now. They're not executing properly, and that's because of a lack of belief in the system. And if you're a player and you've been playing under this coach for several seasons at this point, which he has been here for a while now, and you're constantly losing in these situations, I mean, are you going to really have much confidence in the fact that
in your game plan?
Yeah, exactly. The team's going to be winning when you're dumping and chasing the puck in constantly. I don't know.
And that's where I see AV getting out coached. And let's go back to the power play real quick. And I feel like I'm pretty harsh with the stuff that I say. So I'm trying to be a little easier on people because this is a tough time, and I get why everybody's searching for answers. And I'm I don't know it all, but a lot of people are like, oh, the power play is too predictable. That is, and I'm gonna say it over and over again. That is irrelevant. You have footage on every team in the National Hockey League. They already know what you're gonna do.
Every power play is technically predictable.
Everything is predictable. They know you, they know your players, they know how you've been sleeping, they know everything about you already going into the game. When the Flyers had a good power play, it was predictable. It wasn't an issue of predictability. It's a point of execution. Quick, thorough, effective execution. Pass, shoot. Pass, shoot. Pass, shoot. That you look at them now, it's like pass, deer in the headlights, pass.
They're very indecisive. Very indecisive.
Because there are no options available. If you're watching they don't actually have an option available.
No, they're all covered most of the time.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's why I see it as a coaching issue, because I'm like, dude, the system that you're deploying has been matched. It has been measured, and you've been found wanting. I'm quoting a movie there, but no, for sure. I feel like they're looking at the way we play and they go, yeah, no problem. It'll
still be easy to defend. Well, the reason is just to break down a little bit more, and we'll go further into the power play. I would say if you watch the Flyers power play, it's all stationary. They pass to Giroux, let's
perimeter
say,
and stationary.
He stands there. Then Couturier standing at the bottom half wall, he passes back to him. Then JVR, let's say if he's on that unit, which he is, and it's Frost that was at the net front, which also doesn't make any sense. But anyway, he gets pushed. He's just or standing there, and he gets passed to. I
think Couturier should be in the bumper.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's had success there in the past, which, I mean, once again, if you look at the past and how the power play was playing, why not go back to things that had success in the past when it was clicking? But either way, if you look at any successful power play, look at Edmonton, look at Colorado, look at the Leafs, look at their power plays. They're all very good. You see players constantly moving around. Let's say Connor McDavid gets a pass on the left-hand boards. Then you see Draisaitl rotate out from behind the net on the other side. And then in that way, players get lost in the shuffle, and they're hard to mark. They're hard to defend. When you're just standing still, the other team knows where you're going to be. They know what you're looking for. Oh, there's a guy on the other side of the ice. That's an opposite shot. They're obviously going to try to pass him for a one-timer. He's not moving anywhere. So I feel like, if just mirroring the other teams that are being successful could be a help. But obviously, as we were iterating before, the coaching staff just doesn't seem like they need to adjust, and that's a level of stubbornness, I think, with such a veteran staff.
Well, I do want to say one thing. I do think that Therrien has tried to make some adjustments. There were more rotations in the beginning of the season. I think he tried to simplify things, to be fair to him. I don't I don't like him as a coach. I never
Me
liked him as a coach,
neither. Yeah.
but he's also not an idiot. None of these
No,
guys are idiots.
they know what they're doing.
Right.
They're experienced hockey minds. They have these jobs for a reason. They're not
It's the toughest
idiots.
league in the world. It's the toughest
Yeah.
league in the world. And that's kind of my thing is that like I just don't know if Terrian's ever really been a good power play guy ever.
He's never been a power play coach aside from now, really.
And it seems that
Typically,
way, doesn't it?
well, typically, like at least I know when he coached in Pittsburgh and when he coached in Montreal, his whole aspect was that he was in charge of the defensive side of the ice.
Yes.
So, I mean, now they brought him on to be in charge of the offense and the power play, which
And the offense has disappeared.
The offense has disappeared. So, I mean, maybe he's just out of his elements. He's never done something like this before. Obviously, he probably knows what, like I said, he knows more than me and you. He is a professional at what he's doing. We are not. I'm totally giving that to him. It's just like, if you're a player and a coach is typically telling you to do something over and over and over, and you see it not working and you're continuing to do it, the confidence that you have as a player is going to keep dwindling, and the confidence you have in your coaches telling you what to do is going to keep dwindling.
Yes.
And that's obvious that we're seeing that because the power play just can't execute. And I think one change that they could really be made is just, do you ever see, or have we ever seen this season, or even since AV's been the coach, Terrian's been the power play coach, them operating from behind the net? I remember seeing a few times they would try to get Giroux.
The first season.
Yeah, they tried to get Giroux behind the net, pass out front to Couturier, and guess what? He would score goals.
Score, yeah, and then they never do it.
They never do it anymore. And like, if you look at all the best power plays in the league, they're all behind the net. They're all passing behind the net, low to high, and making like defensemen and goaltenders turn. And that's the thing, right? When you're a goalie, the hardest thing is when somebody's behind your net, because you don't know which way they're going to come out. You don't know which way they're going to pass off, which way you might have to push off the post and make a save. So I just go back to the years of when Danny Briere would be letting it up on the power play. He was always behind the net making plays. And I'd love to see them go back to that, but I just think the coaching staff.
You put Konechny in that position for sure.
Yeah. The coaching staff's just very stubborn, and it just seems like they're set in their ways, and they're just willing to go with what they know until it either works or continues to fail, which right now it's continuing to fail.
Yeah. So. And at a certain point, this might sound silly, but I do respect that at the same time, because it's easy to question yourself under tough times. It's very difficult to have confidence and faith in the process that got you there to begin with. And that's why I don't say that AV's a bad coach, but he has been fired twice before. Good coaches get fired. Exactly. Laviolette got fired. And I mentioned Bruce Boudreau. I don't know if he's the best option. I'm not getting to interview him, but I know something about Bruce Boudreau. He's not good in the playoffs. We know that. But the other thing is, every team he takes over, they immediately jump to the top of the standings and they start producing goals. And it's one of those things where he just plays different. And right now, I think this team needs to play differently than the way they're playing. I would argue that last season should have been that way too. I can't explain the first year's success because they didn't look great in the beginning of the year. They looked decent, and then they just exploded and were unstoppable. But again, that wasn't sustained. And I feel like since that time period, it's like he just I don't know. People went on vacation, came back, and he no longer was the head coach in their mind.
Yeah, and who's to know, if that season didn't get cut short by COVID, how it all would have played out. So I think it kind of brings a false sense of certainty in our minds that, that Flyers team was so good and they need to get back to that. They were very good, but it was for a 2-month period. So, I mean, realistically, it's hard to know exactly what they were. Could have just been a hot streak. Not to take anything away from that team, because I did think they were very good. And in their process, underlying metrics, all that type of stuff, they were, arguably one of the best teams in the NHL that season. But it's just, you can only look at past success so much and point to it and say, okay, well, you were good in the past, so we trust you that you can, get things back on track in the future. But at this point, that past success is so limited in terms of how bad they've been since then, that it's basically they've been worse a lot more than they've been good.
Yes.
So.
And I sincerely mean this, and I feel like people think I'm kidding. I don't see it as a talent issue.
I
Not
don't either. I think
maybe
the team has talent. Like they do
yeah,
lack a game breaker. That's
sure,
evident.
but
Like
that's
they
to
don't
win a
have a
cup.
yeah.
But that's to
uh,
win a cup. We're talking about
yeah.
being competitive.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? You have to mitigate your expectations. Like nobody was anybody really expecting the Flyers to come in and be, a Stanley Cup contender? No,
No,
but we
we
were
expected a definitive wild card spot,
yeah, exactly,
or maybe the number 3.
which if you look at the way this team is structured, their roster, that's definitely doable. Like to say that, yeah, it's crazy to go on social media and go on Twitter and just see people losing their minds. But I mean, that's Flyers Twitter
I don't
for you
blame
in a nutshell.
dude, 7 losses in a row. I don't blame people
7 losses in a
for
row, but
losing their shit.
not even that. Like what the team hasn't seen out of the second round in a decade. Like
Yeah.
the last
Yeah.
time they've been out of the second round, I was watching, Mike Richards and Jeff Carter. It's a long time since that point. So
And I do want to make that clear. They were not game breakers.
no, they weren't. Exactly. They were good players, but if
Chris
you have
Pronger
enough
was, but
yeah, if you have enough good players though on one team.
I mean, we had a ridiculous team. If you look at that
Yeah.
team, I mean, you
Oh,
had Danny
man.
Briere on that team.
Gagne
Gagne's my
Hartnell.
favorite player of all time. Scott Hartnell, obviously Claude Giroux. I actually think that this team healthy and give AV the little benefit of the doubt. He's not at a healthy squad this year.
No, he hasn't.
But the injuries, like they have a competitive team on paper. And I don't agree with people that we don't have a number 1 and blah, blah, blah. We have 2 very good defensemen, one of which who's been injured. We have a young Travis Sanheim, who I think still is a good young defenseman.
For me, he's been their best defenseman.
He still struggled at times,
He's
right?
struggled, but like overall in terms of consistency, like Provorov was a lot better earlier. He's been struggling lately, but we pointed to the fact that
Sanheim's got Risto as a partner. I think that makes a difference.
It does.
He's got a better partner than Provorov.
Exactly. That's what I mean, right? So like it's stability in the
Provorov
game.
still gets tougher minutes.
It's stability in the game, right? So that's the thing. Like they have good players. And these players have talent. They're not just seventh it's not a team full of seventh NHL defensemen and all fourth liners. Like
everybody calls them middle 6 and middle, and second pairing defensemen, and I don't think that that's true. I really don't think that that's true.
It's just the frustration, really.
Yes, and that's understandable. And that's understandable.
Exactly.
It's a really frustrating year, man. It's a really frustrating year. Like I don't expect AV to get fired yet. Just so like. I would have fired him already.
I would have fired him this morning. Personally,
I would have fired him last year.
Yeah,
I would have fired him after those Rangers game. I would have fired him.
Yeah, I wouldn't have came back with him as the coach. I'm just speaking strictly in this season. Like,
sure.
Okay, he's here. After that, like you got to look at it this way. Okay, so you get shellacked by the Devils on the weekend, who aren't a good team. Like they're decent.
They're average team.
They're not great.
I mean,
on paper, the Flyers are a better team. They have more talent. We can all agree there.
I agree.
First off, you shouldn't be losing to that team.
Definitely not 5-2.
No. And if you're going to lose,
maybe a close one.
Yeah, an overtime loss, which it looked like it was heading there until a couple of mistakes. But anyway, so we look at that game, and then the media requests to speak to Chuck Fletcher. So he has a press conference per the media's request. So you have a stinker against, the Devils who aren't that great. Fletcher comes out. He doesn't really put the coaches under the bus. He essentially calls the players out, says they need to be better. And then the players go ahead and then don't play really well against the Rangers. That kind of shows, like, if I'm the GM and I'm putting that out there, that shows I'm standing up for my coach. It's the players now. They're fighting for the coach's job. If they have a good showing against the Rangers, okay, AV's locked in.
They're not fighting for his job.
They're not fighting for his job, and that's how you know he's lost the room, right? So you have to have your finger on the pulse. And Fletcher, it's kind of weird to me because he was so aggressive this offseason. You think that he wouldn't want to let these moves go to waste and let it
that's why I hate what he said about the personnel thing, where he's like, oh, we don't have shooters on the power play. I'm like, well, why didn't you fix it in the offseason then?
Yeah, literally.
Why didn't you make that trade for Tarasenko? Why didn't you do it? If you thought it was such a glaring issue, which I don't believe it is. I don't. No. I don't agree with him. I think he's making excuses. If you actually thought that, then why isn't that where you spent your resources? Because it wasn't the issue. Because it's not true, and he's full of shit. Yes.
Yeah.
He's defending his coaches. You need to stop. Michel Therrien, I understand he's a professional. He doesn't need daddy defending. It's not going to help you, dude.
No.
It's not going to help you. We're not dumb.
All it's going to do too is just make the players resent the coaches even more because
Yes.
I mean,
That's it. They don't.
Yeah,
they're not responsible. It's just us. It's their game plan.
yeah, we're following what they're doing and we're losing. So
Yes.
and then it's the thing too. If you're a player, hypothetically, right, and let's say, I mean, it's known that AV likes his veteran players. He not too much.
He likes Farabee a lot.
He does, but like you see how he is with Frost, a lot of the younger guys, he doesn't give them much of a leash, right? So if you're a younger guy, you're going to obviously want to follow a system so you don't get demoted in terms of playing time. So if it's not working and you're not doing what you think is your instinct on the ice, you're following what the coach is doing, you're thinking in your mind, okay, what am I supposed to do next? Because I'm doing what the coach is saying, but it's not working. And he won't let us, kind of experiment in terms of trying our own, offensive tactics. So either way, I mean, it's just hard to gauge, why Fletcher is kind of defending them. But anyway, kind of got off track. But
no,
either way, I was just trying to say that, I mean, after that game against the Rangers, you have to let him go because it shows the players aren't fighting for him. So what's going to happen against Tampa on Sunday and then Colorado on Monday? They're going to get blown out, and then he's going to get fired.
Yeah,
so,
and this is his.
Why wait? Why wait?
Well, and here's probably because he doesn't have a backup picked. Like you actually have to interview.
Yeah, I know for sure.
No, you're because you would think because to your point, they have a window here of days off. This is typically the time where it's done.
Perfect time.
Yeah, you don't want to fire him like right at Christmas. I mean, I personally don't care. If anything, maybe that's even better because, you spend time with your family instead of.
Yeah.
But he's been fired before, dude. It's not like he walks away with $10 million. Like, I'm sure he doesn't want to get fired.
But $10 million sounds good.
Yeah. Well, they still have to pay him he's got a guaranteed contract for the last 2 years, I believe. And, I just like look at it and I go like, I just don't know how much further this can go. Like you can't change your whole team. You made a bunch of changes. You said you need more veterans, and you're seeing that he's lost the room again with different players.
Yeah.
The second time he lost the room.
Exactly. But that's like what we were saying before. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. Absolutely. And that's what they've done. That's what they've done with AV in a sense. He was looking for more veteran players. He wanted players because everybody knows that AV is a guy, as we were talking, that prefers veterans. What did Fletcher do? He went out and he shipped out some young guys in Nolan Patrick and Philip Myers. He brought in older players that could potentially fit his system better. The system still isn't working. So what's left to change?
Well, that's my problem.
You can't trade the whole team again. You can't change 50% of the roster mid-season. So
no.
If you want to be competitive,
a lot of people are like yelling for a trade, and like maybe it can spark the team. It's not going to.
No,
it's like people are like, call up Frost. It's like it doesn't work that way. There's something inherently wrong here.
Yeah, one
player is not going to change that unless a franchise caliber.
Unless player. It's Connor McDavid somehow that we're getting. It's not going to make
even then. Even then, you're actually you're just band-aiding the problem because you're still going to get rid of the coach at the end of the day because the only reason he's able to keep his job is because you brought in a franchise player. A good coach a coach for the right team will get the most out of the players he has in the lineup.
Yeah,
and this is why my first choice was actually Dave Tippett, the coach of the Oilers. Like, I don't think the Oilers are that great on paper, right?
He gets a lot out of them.
That's my point. Is like I don't need you to be Mr. Nice Guy, but I need you to be the type of coach who gets the most out of your players, who will, like right now in Detroit, right? Raymond, right? He's killing it. Morris Sider, killing it, right? Yeah. They're young as hell. That coach, which I forget his name, but I know he's a younger coach.
It's Blashill.
Blashill, yeah. He's a younger coach, but he's getting the most out of the guys that he has. They don't have the most talent on that team.
Because you can tell he's not giving them free offensive reign, but you have to let players be themselves in terms of offensive creativity. And
look at the Rangers. Look at the Rangers that we just played. And by the way, I wanted Gallant as well over I
probably would have rather had him as well too.
I was actually very upset when he was hired by the Rangers.
He's a great coach. Look,
they fired. What was his name?
David Quinn.
David Quinn. Thank you. They fired Quinn last year, and that's Chris Drury. They didn't accept an average year. He didn't even do that bad.
They didn't even do bad last season.
Yes.
They were pretty good.
And yet they're like, hey, we have more talent than what we're producing. We need to
Yeah.
find the right coach for this team.
Exactly.
And this is what I'm talking about. It's like you need the right coach for the players that you have on your lineup. We
Yeah.
fired Peter Laviolette. He wasn't a bad coach. Shouldn't have fired him 3 games in. I think that's a little ridiculous. But it wasn't the right coach, and our team wasn't very good either. Like, we brought in Chief. We weren't really that much better with Chief. And then we fired Chief, and then he goes and wins the Stanley Cup. It's like, again, he was a right coach for that team. And he still is.
Yeah.
Right? Those players bought into what he has to sell. And they brought in new players, and they're still doing well. And they lost good players, and they're still doing well. You need a coach that will keep this locker room together, that people will buy in.
AV is not that right now. I can say that, his first season, he was a good coach. The team looked like they were buying into the system. They were
Do you
playing
think it's
for each
because of
other.
Kevin Hayes?
What?
So let me back up a little bit here. Do you how old are you actually?
25.
25. Okay, so this might be you're probably a little bit younger when this happened, but when Keith Primo was playing here, do you remember that era?
Yeah, of course. Keith Primo, Desjardins,
right?
All those guys, Jeremy Roenick,
and Coach Ken Hitchcock, right?
Of course.
And Hitchcock, smart guy. Okay, also short lifespan with teams, right?
Yes.
Also good coach.
A coach with tons of teams.
Yes, and always got fired in the end because he had a very short lifespan, and understandably. But what a big thing was there is that Keith Primo was the voice in that locker room that communicated from the players to the coach. Like, he's the reason that locker room is together, and they got him to buy in. You know what I mean? Or he got them to buy in. Hitchcock,
there's no bridge
right
now,
and that's where I was like, is that bridge to the coach Kevin Hayes? Like a remnant of AV, and I was like, maybe that's why when they were rocking and rolling, Kevin Hayes was in his best era. I don't know if that's actually true, but do we even have that? Like, is Claude Giroux that bridge? Right now, he's unsigned.
Yeah, I don't know.
And what does that tell me? Does that sound like he's like, well, maybe I don't want to play under this coach?
Yeah, there was an interview with Voracek, just stating, I believe he was stating in the offseason with Columbus that there was just things with him and the coaches that they wanted him to do, and he was trying to do them, but they just couldn't see eye to eye. And they said in February or March it was just time to move on. And he said he was happy with doing that because he just couldn't stand being in Philly any longer. And what does that point to? Because that him and Giroux, were always good friends, and they had good chemistry on the ice and would produce with one another. So I can't see that it's a teammate issue. It's got to be a coaching thing. And this is this is what we heard from Rangers fans in the past when they had Vigneault, right? Vigneault he had a very short short shelf life as well. Like the first season or two, he's really good. After that, you see players starting to tune him out. And we're at that point where it doesn't look like the players are listening to whatever he's trying to preach. And if you watch them, they look very robotic on the ice. And when I mean robotic, like, I don't see players willing to take a chance or really do anything spectacularly offensively that we know some of these players have talent that can do. Like, think about Travis Konecny in his first few seasons. You see him make certain plays that would be like, wow, what an astonishing play on the ice. When have you seen that from Konecny since 2019 when the team was rolling? He
had one at the beginning of this year where he scored a goal and he followed up on the rebound, and I was like, damn, that's Travis Konecny.
Yeah, but like you were seeing that all season. Like in the past, right? It's just not to say that players are regressing under him, but if you
I would argue that they are.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if you
that it's true.
If you look from 2019 to now, all the young players have pretty much gotten worse under AV. Aside from Joel Farabee, he's basically been the same, gone better, and the veterans, have been what they are. But they're already what they are anyway. So,
and that's kind of what worries me, man. It's like you're asking this guy to literally instill a culture here, and the culture is not like people want to rebuild, and they're like, oh, none of Hextall's prospects worked out. We had the best prospect pool in hockey.
Yeah, I know.
For like a few years. And I get that. Look, it's not realistic that all of them pan out.
No, they're not.
But Hextall didn't do a shit job putting together a prospect pool.
No.
He stacked the deck, and we didn't have the right guys to bring that forward. And quite frankly, maybe Scott Gordon needs a little bit more credit, who apparently is wanted at the NHL level now.
Yeah.
And maybe he needs a little bit of credit because, quite frankly, the Phantoms were better under him. And he did a good job stepping in as head coach. I don't know if he's the right coach for this team. I'm just saying we clearly had an environment.
At least fostering growth with the AHL team.
Yes. And I don't think Hackstall was the right coach either. But I also don't think he was anywhere near as bad as people said he was.
And you know what? There's something to point out. There's something to point out too that we were talking about, and that just kind of speaks to the systems and how they're fundamentally the root of like the problem with the team. It's not the fact that they don't have skill or a 1C or a 1D and Provorov's bad. Yeah. All that stuff that people are going crazy about.
Yeah.
So this season, one thing that Fletcher, Vigneault, Laperriere wanted to do was ensure that the AHL team was playing the same offensive system that the NHL team was.
And look how it's worked out.
Yeah, was playing the same system, so it would be a seamless transition. You know, players come
like
up
8% or something.
Pretty much, players come up though. They'd get called up and say, "Oh, I don't have to learn a new system. Yes. I know exactly where to go because we're playing the same thing in the AHL that AV's
on
doing."
paper makes sense.
No, that makes sense, and I actually like that idea. Yeah. But all it furthers is the fact that the system
doesn't work either level.
Yeah. At either level, because the Phantoms should not be this bad in terms of scoring. Like their power play is literally, like you said, 8%. Like they aren't that bad in terms of an AHL team. So once again, that's another highlight to the fact that the system is just
a great point.
It's outdated. Like think about dump and chase hockey. That was a big thing from 1995 to 2010.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, what's the game about now? Control entries with the possession, control the puck while you enter the blue line, cycle the puck down low, pass out front, try to score goals. The Flyers are not doing anything nearly close to any of that. They're just giving the puck away every time they get it, basically.
And if you look at most of their entry attempts, they're usually very much east to west. You'll watch them come in and then fling the puck to the other side, which is a low percentage opportunity. And that's what it ends up being. And a lot of times there's one guy surrounded by 2 or 3 opponents and he can't get the puck through to anybody. And it's like the same. And again, I'm seeing it at 5-on-5 now too. It started with just the power play. And now the 5-on-5 play is like that too. They just keep us to the outside.
And that's basically what happens. At least this is their offensive scheme. They try to pass the puck 200 feet because the wingers fly the zone in the system, and that's what AV wants them to do, apparently.
Yes.
So they fly the zone. They try to hope for a 200-foot pass. It doesn't happen. They get turned around and get scored on. It does happen. Travis Konechny gets the puck, dumps it into the corner, and he's by himself. Or Couturier might get there, and then he's surrounded by 4 guys.
Yeah,
he's surrounded by 4 guys.
Dude, all the time. That it's like it's kind of stupid, but it's like that duck fly together type of thing from Mighty Ducks. Like they need to move up as a controlled unit. Like you have to move up with support around you for quick, simple passes to get into the zone. And then when you're in the zone, 1-2 shoot, 1-2 shoot. Like, you don't see that anymore. You don't see them even be able to win battles along the boards.
No.
And don't tell me that they don't have the talent for that. Oh, and by the way, Oscar Lindblom is one of the best players on the team doing it. And he's playing minimal minutes and completely being ignored, while JVR, who again, I like, but is doing almost nothing. He's not getting any consequences.
So actually, let's touch on him.
Lindblom is.
Let's touch on JVR. Like, what do you think with him? Right? Do you think he's just declining, or what's wrong?
I think there's a hint of him declining, but I think it's, again, he's not a playmaker. Like he's not.
And they're not playing him with guys that can really create space for him.
Well, they're playing him with Farabee and Couturier, and it's still.
Oh yeah, the last game, yeah. But
they're playing him they're playing him on the right side, which he has no experience doing. He's on his backhand. That's definitely not going to help.
No.
But at the same time, I think he's not a setup guy. I think he's literally. One, I do think is in decline for sure, and I think he's subjugated to get bought out actually at the end of the year, regardless of what happens. But I think in his case, it's like he's a guy who does well when the players around him do well. He did do well last year when other people weren't. I think he was worried that he was going to lose his NHL job and was playing his freaking heart out. Now he knows he's kind of safe. He bought, I don't think he's like being lazy, but I think he's not like under the, like now for some reason it's Lindblom.
Yeah.
Like why is Lindblom even in this? I I honestly don't even understand. Is he the only guy who isn't scoring? No, he's not, right?
The thing that doesn't make
Played
sense
with Nate
is
Thompson
like,
majority of the season.
yeah, well, the thing that doesn't make sense is that's what I mean. Like everybody's pointing, oh, Lindblom's so bad, he's regressed so much. I mean, first of all, you don't know how a cancer like that's going to ravage your body. You're never going to be the same after that. And if you do get close to it, it's going to take years to build your strength back up. That's the first thing. So you can't expect too much out of the guy right off the bat. The second thing as well is like you're playing him on the fourth line majority of the time. What do you expect him to produce with Nate Thompson and Zach McEwen? No disrespect to them. Like put him with Couturier for 3 games, see what he can do.
They haven't even tried it once.
It's not like the team's scoring any goals, doing anything else. You might as well.
Maybe they'll do it now because Farabee is out, and
it's possible.
I really hope
he's not out long term.
Yeah, dude. It's like
he's our best offensive player right now.
It's like the last thing we need. It's like, is Joel Farabee hurt? It's like I think it actually hurts more than Hayes.
What do you think about Giroux? Everybody's thinking, oh, it's time to get rid of Giroux. This is his last year.
I think it's insanity. I mean, if you really want to be at the bottom of the league, sure,
get rid of him. Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Me neither.
I think you should fire the coach, re-sign Giroux, and continue what you were trying to do. And not because you lost 7 games in a row, flip the fucking board, trade your captain. Say, first of all, we still have assets in this system. I know people don't care and don't have any patience for that. But like, you're all excited when Bobby Brink was drafted. You're over him already. Like
Tuamala,
Cam York is still in the
first round picks.
Everybody's just like, if they don't work out now, it's just we don't have anybody. The system sucks.
It's not how development works.
Unfortunately, it's not.
Linear.
We missed on Patrick. He had a bunch of injuries. That sucks.
Anyone else in the league would have picked him though.
Yes, correct.
That's the thing that people don't understand. They're like, oh, the Flyers, scouting staff is so bad. How could they have picked Nolan Patrick? People don't remember that he was literally the consensus number 1 to the last
dominated juniors.
Yeah.
He had better numbers than everyone by far.
Anybody would have picked him. So I mean,
he was MVP of a championship squad.
Yeah, anybody, you know what I'm saying? Like anybody can go back in hindsight and look at drafts and cherry pick and say, oh, they should have picked this player. Like at the end of the day, drafting is not something that is, can be summed up in just one single thing. Like a lot of it's very luck based. So anybody in the league would have picked him. Right?
That's where I worry because we have guys that I think are talented that like Isaac Ratcliffe. I still wonder what's going on with Ratcliffe. Yeah. I'm starting to get concerned that we're not going to get the most out of the investments that we made because if we don't put the right people in charge of them, we're not going to get the best results.
LaPerriere running AV system is not bringing confidence to any younger guys.
And I really like LaPerriere's personality. I do. Lappy.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of his.
I agree.
I knew LaPerriere. I'm okay. I knew it was going to be a learning curve for him to be coach.
But let him run his own systems. You know what I mean?
I think we're only saying that because if the Flyers were doing well, and he was running a system that worked at the NHL level, he probably wouldn't be as harsh. And he does have a ridiculous amount of injuries. Yeah. He doesn't have Lazinski, he doesn't have Allison, he just lost Frost. York has been out of late.
Fitzgerald's out.
Forrester's out.
Zamula was out to begin the season.
Yeah, Wisdom obviously never even had. He definitely has lost a bunch of talent. I accept that too. Having said that, it's I'm still not seeing guys produce. Rubtsov is out as well. Even when they're playing, they're not producing.
Yeah. At that point, you got to give the coach a chance to be his own coach.
Maxim Sushko was lighting up the AHL, and all of a sudden his game completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And again, that was under Scott Gordon that he did that. You know what I mean? And I'm looking at stuff. I'm I'm not trying to be an asshole. I feel bad picking on people, fire them. And I'm a pretty patient dude, but I'm
I would like to say we're both pretty positive, but it's just at this point, 7-game losing streak. Both teams in terms of the AHL and NHL team are floundering offensively. Yeah. Some change needs to be made. I mean, there's only so long you can sit here and be stagnant. As Chuck Fletcher was saying in the offseason, another year like the past season would take years off his life. Well, the years are coming off quick. They must be, because he's watching the same thing happen once again.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely killing me, man.
Me too. It's
having
definitely not fun to watch the games
Yeah.
right now.
Well, this is the first time I've ever been a fan of the Flyers, and that they literally get a power play, and I'm like, irrelevant.
Decline the power
I'm
play.
like it's irrelevant. Like I don't even get excited. I don't even go like, okay, here's an opportunity.
Here's
like,
a goal.
Well, here's a way to embarrass ourselves again.
Yeah.
Like,
well, think back to 2013 or 2014 when Flyers get a power play. Like, okay, Giroux's gonna get us a goal. Something's gonna happen. Now
something's gonna happen. Generate momentum. Get close. That 5-minute power play killed me.
It's been almost like the negative hour, I guess.
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's not much positive, positivity.
The positive is that Wade Allison is healthy, and he will be playing for the Phantoms on Friday. Hopefully,
it comes up soon.
Yeah, but it'll take a couple games. He's going to stay for the Phantoms for a little bit. They have to make sure he is healthy first.
Yeah, but just to go a little onto the positive side, the 2017-18 Flyers team lost 10 in a row, guys, and made the playoffs. So don't worry.
Well, I think that's what that's a nice note. I think what worries people too is that they don't want to be a meddling, mediocre team that makes it in the first round and then gets easily eliminated.
The thing is, though, if this team gets in as an 8 seed, even, I think with Carter Hart in place, and if you got Ellis back, they could be potentially a really good team that could go deep. It's just you have to get there, and if they're not going to get there, then obviously it's all a waste. But
I want to make it clear that I want to see that.
So
I want to see them make the playoffs. I want to see them right the ship and turn around. I'm not going to be like, oh no, see now we can't blow up our team. I don't want to blow up our team.
No, me neither do I. Like
no interest.
If somehow Alain Vigneault gets the team to go on a 5-game winning streak for now, I'll eat my words. There's nothing against him as a coach. It's just like it's not working, and it's pretty obvious that it isn't. Right?
Yes.
So
I'm worried about the constant pattern of this.
Yeah.
And
then how long until you keep doing this, players keep regressing, and that's eventually what they are now. They can't get out of the hole, right?
Yes, and then their confidence is shot, and that's why I was bringing up Bruce Boudreau, because I believe he can get their confidence up.
I'd love to see him even talk it. I wouldn't mind to see talk it.
I have no idea what's gonna happen. I don't want to see John Tortorella.
That would be. I think that would be. I don't know if that'd be worse. It'd be interesting. It'd be fun.
I think they could spark them in the beginning, but I think at the end of the day, we'd want him gone within like a year.
Probably.
Fans would.
He's one of those guys that's also a short shelf life.
Absolutely. He's really hard to deal with, and I don't think that's what this locker room needs right now. I think they need a guy who walk in like Laviolette did back in the day and go, "Yo, Claude Giroux is the best player in the world."
Yeah.
Let's
get going.
Literally, that wasn't even true at the time. He was playing out of his mind. Best player in the world was still Sidney Crosby. Laviolette did not care. He said, "We have the best player in the world on our team."
But that's what you got to do as a coach. You got to motivate your players, motivate your team. They're gonna want to go to battle with the best player, quote unquote, in the world.
Yes. And to be fair to AV, and this is a credit to him, and I think he's actually done a good job in this respect. He has not gone public throwing people under the bus.
No, but
and I think that's a good sign.
To stop you there, yesterday, I don't know if you saw the press conference after the game. I watched it because I was I was pissed, but I'm just like, I'm pissed watching this game. Let me be pissed watching this press conference too. Anyway, so I watched the press conference, and AV talks about the play on the 3-0 goal where Scott Lawton sends a pizza through the middle of the ice to Hayes and Konechny were blowing the zone, trying to get a 2-on-1. And this is the first time this season, because last season he would say they a lot. Oh, the players, they did this, but I was saying to do that. So it would be a lot of disconnect. And as a player, you don't want to hear your coach saying that because you're trying to follow what he's telling you.
Yeah.
So he said in the press conference yesterday, they asked him, why was, Hayes and Konechny so high in the zone? They're not supporting the players down low. That's what resulted in the odd man opportunity and a goal against in the first minute of the second period. He said, we want Hayes and Konechny to fly the zone like that. It's Scott Lawton needed to make a better play and not backhand the puck and give it away that way, and he should have been better. That's what he said, essentially. So, that's throwing a guy under the bus. That's the first sign of
a coach getting fired, by the way.
Exactly. When he starts to throw players under the bus, I'm sure Scotty Lawton isn't feeling too good about that because that's the system he has in place based on what he's saying, that they are supposed to fly the zone. He tried his best to make the pass. Personally, you shouldn't be flying the zone when there's 3 guys on one in your own zone.
I was thinking that the whole time when I saw them immediately exit the zone. I was literally thinking that. I was like, where are they going?
Yeah. And I mean, a concept of this season, which is kind of hilarious, you go from the Flyers being a top 5 team in scoring. Now they're like a bottom 5 team, probably the bottom 2 team in scoring, where their goaltending last year was bottom 2, and now it's top 5. So it's just the irony is very, very interesting levels. And yeah, I mean, we just need to see what's going to happen. I still think there's a chance that they could right the ship, but the longer it goes, staying with the coaching staff, it's harder for this to become salvageable.
I'm not expecting it for them. I think if the struggles continue, they will get fired. But the way that Fletcher responded in that press conference, I don't think he's in a rush to fire anybody.
No,
or make a trade.
I would say if they lose Sunday and Monday back to back and like get the doors blown off, which like very well could happen because Tampa Bay and Colorado, 2 of the best teams in the league, I could see him being gone after that. But he should be gone this morning, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, there's a good chance he already should have lost his job. I just don't feel confident after what I heard from Fletcher.
So. Me neither, but hopefully it's lip service just for the moment. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I think Fletcher did a good job in the offseason, so I don't want to
bury the guy. I think he did well as well. So
and that's the weird thing is that, like, you know, this whole we don't have talent and stuff, people are just saying that as a reaction to what's happened of late.
Crazy Flyers social media. So
I mean, there's a lot of people that, you know, have podcasts that are saying this stuff, and like, I understand their frustration. I really do. But
you got to look at things objectively.
Also not true.
You got to look at things objectively. Like Sean Couturier would be a number 1 center on probably 20 out of 32 teams in this league. Yes. Maybe there's a handful of teams where you have Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel.
I heard people saying like, yo, Sean Couturier is going to be a tough contract to move. I was like,
why
okay.
Why trade him?
Sure,
and if you did want to trade him,
he would not be difficult.
I'm sure there's teams lining up.
There would be 20 teams in the league trying to grab that contract for that player off of this team.
Exactly.
It's like saying Ryan O'Reilly was tough to move out of Buffalo.
How easy was that for them to trade to St. Louis?
Yeah, and then they got barely anything in return. And you
know what?
Ryan O'Reilly ended up.
That's a perfect comparison because people were saying, "Oh, Couturier doesn't look like himself. He doesn't look good." This team, I mean, at least in the past little while, they're fostering a culture of losing. What does a culture of losing do to a player? It demoralizes them. It makes them lack confidence. Look at how Ryan O'Reilly was playing on the Buffalo Sabres. He was not looking like a good hockey player.
Yeah, he was better in Colorado.
Once he left that situation, he turned into a great player again. So it just shows when you're in a situation where losing is constant and the emotions keep getting repeated, there's no changes, you know, to the system. It just shows that that's going to affect the players in a lot of different ways. So people need to not press the panic button. Obviously, it's still early. I know we keep saying, oh, it's like halfway through the season. There's still 60 games left. The Flyers could fire the coaches and win 7 games in a row, and they're in the playoffs again. Like they're only 4 points back on Columbus right now for a wild card. So Flyers fans, I mean, don't panic. It's possible things can get turned around. If it keeps going this way for like the next 2 weeks, probably won't get turned around, but there's still time. There's still time.
And even if
it's
it
a short
doesn't,
window,
I would not be looking for Fletcher to be blowing up the team. It's not happening.
They have a lot of good pieces still.
Yeah, it's not happening, and it's also not going to help you. It's just going to set you back for years again. All right, we're at the hour, so let's wrap this one up. Vasili, thank you for coming on. Anything you want to leave the listeners, anything you're working on or got upcoming?
Yeah, sure. So I should actually have an article going up on Flyers nittygritty.com tomorrow morning, kind of touching on the things we talked about here, maybe a little bit more positive in nature. I got to get a little positivity out, I think, after the negativity hour, but that's what the Flyers are right now. So it's okay. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at FlyerItUp. And it was great to be on the podcast here. I really appreciate you having me on. Fun to talk about the Flyers, even though they're not doing that well right now. But here's hoping we see some changes in the future and we see them rebound. Like I was saying before, They lost 10 games in a row in 2017 and made the playoffs. So that just shows it's possible, guys. So don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, it's always possible. They're not out of this. I think people are pissed
Jump
off
in the
because,
gun.
I think people are also pissed off because expectations were high.
Yeah.
Like nobody expected this again, and people want blood, and I don't really blame them. And it's really difficult to watch your team lose, especially when they're just completely inept at scoring in the process of that. And you don't see any sign of that changing.
It's tough.
Don't blame people. All right. Thank you, Vasili. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. Please like, subscribe, share. It's a humongous help. Comment too. Definitely, I read all the comments. I might not respond to all of them, but I definitely read them all. So thank you so much. Let's hope the Flyers improve because I am getting so sick of complaining.
Me too.
Right. Thank you, everybody. And remember, always stay great.